of fans out there are very, very pumped for as we get ready to kick off the 2025 NASCAR season. And specifically the Cup Series, of course, the 500 on Sunday. I'll be here all season long, along with CJ Verdun from rotowire.com. How's it going, CJ?
Ready for the season to begin. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And also, we have a new handicapper on board. If you follow NASCAR, you might have seen his work over at Vegas Insider, but he's now going to be doing some work for us here on the channel. He's going to do a little hockey as well, but he's going to be first getting started with handicapping. Obviously, the NASCAR season starts, so he's going to dive into that with the hockey 2-week hiatus. So you're going to be seeing Kevin's video come out, I believe, on Friday or Saturday. So subscribe to the channel. You don't miss our videos. You don't miss Kevin. That gives us another handicapper to get insight on, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that. We're going to have a post-qualifying video coming out on Saturday. Actually, it's going to be Friday because the duels are Thursday. That's tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday. Is that correct, CJ?
You got it. Tomorrow, starting at 7 o'clock, the first duel kicks off.
Okay, so then we'll know the lineup Thursday night. So there's no reason for me not to. I'll do a video on Friday at some point, and then we'll see how that goes. A little post-qualifying video. Should be a little short, somewhere around 15, 20 minutes, that kind of deal. And then anything in between, like any specific comments, things of that nature we want to get out there. We could utilize the shorts. That's something to look out for. Same thing with Kevin. And then at some point, look out, because we might just pop on and have some live coverage as we, especially on one of these races, these super speedway races. So you never know when we're going to do that. I mean, if you miss it, you can watch it, of course, afterwards. But, if we could put something together live, that would be kind of cool. But either way, that's why you want to subscribe here to the channel. And F1 is not far behind. Okay, so we were last on, what was that, last week to do our season preview?
1 week ago. Yeah.
1 week ago. Nothing's really happened. I guess that's good in a way. But it was kind of different because it was a Sunday night, and then you had to kind of wait. It felt like longer than a week. Let's just say that. It's just the way it was put together was too much of a gap. NASCAR fans know what I'm talking about. I mean, the old timers. I mean, not even going way back, but I mean, it used to be Speed Week for a reason, and we just don't have that anymore. But hopefully they'll bring it back. So it's been quiet. One thing that has changed have been the odds. So we're going to go over that. Obviously, we're also going to give our picks. And our picks this season will consist of our top three. We will not have any duplicate picks. And they'll consist of us. We'll put together like a fictitious like $100 system, $60 for our first pick, $30 for our second pick, $10 for our long shot pick. Kevin's going to do whatever he wants, so just follow whatever he does. But CJ and I are just doing this so we can kind of just keep a record of how we're doing for the season. If you have any questions, fantasy related, anything that we're not talking about, head-to-head matchups, I know that's something that Kevin's going to do. Now, I don't know, because of the way that, with the 500 being the first race, they're getting all this. It's easier to get the information on the odds earlier than normal, including the head-to-head matchups. So we're not sure if Kevin's going to be able to get the head-to-head matchups on his videos if he does them at a certain time, but he's going to take advantage of it this week. So if you're into head-to-heads, let him know, because that's important. Because if he sees that there's a really, a want and a need for head-to-head guidance, then I'm sure Kevin will figure out a way to make sure he does that. But you can definitely get that this week. So he's putting that together for sure. Okay, let's take a look at the odds. Why don't we? And they have changed. Even though on this, we use Draft Kings for just because it's easy to take a look at odds across all spectrums of sports. It's a website that's very easy. It's free. Everybody can use it. Unlike having to go into sports books or things of that nature, everybody's book is different. So, and I pointed that out because you can see Kyle Larson is still sitting here at 10-1. And on my sports book, he's 18-1, which is probably where most books have him. And he might even change here at DraftKings in a couple of days, maybe even after the duels, but we'll wait and see. That's once again, just disregard this. Just disregard the whole thing.
It's better than it was last week.
Oh, was it worse last week?
I want to say he was in single digits last week, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then I guess it would be better if that was the case. All right. So trends to keep an eye on for the Daytona International Speedway. 11 of the last 14 winners have started 10th or lower, including 20th, 21st twice, 29th, 31st, and 34th. So this is not unusual. This is one thing that does make sense as far as Daytona and the super speedways. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think about, I mean, we could take a look at the history from just 15, 20 years before this run of 11 of 14, which is about, again, 7 years, and things really have started to change a little bit over this period of time. But look, this is where a lot of the long shots come from.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. We talk about this a lot when we race at Talladega and Daytona. The starting spot really doesn't matter. And in fact, people focus more on their race cars and their race setups than they do on their qualifying. You know, Daytona qualifying is a little bit different with the duels, so on and so forth. But single car speed really isn't the factor here. It's all about how quickly and easily your car can move through traffic, work with other cars in the draft, and be able to pull up and make passes. It's not easy to do. You can have a pole sitting car and still not be able to make passes in the draft. But yeah, most of the winners have come from the middle of the pack more recently. And actually looking at last 2 races at Daytona last season, the winner didn't even lead 5 laps in either of those races. So you typically don't have drivers that come out and dominate at this track. And they typically seem to be coming from kind of the mid pack more recently as well.
Yeah. And I think it does make more sense in that when things were at a time when you weren't getting all these crazy long shots, the better drivers were qualifying better. They were the faster cars. And so you would get more normal positioning. Sure, you'd have an outlier or two. Tony Stewart won from the 42nd spot in 2012, and Trevor Bayne was a big shocker in the 2011 Daytona 500 from 32nd. Kenseth won from the 39th in 2009, and so on. But you also had more top 10 starting position drivers in the 500. And those were the days of, again, you had more name drivers winning races at Daytona. You know, Kenseth, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, Logano, Hamlin, Kurt Busch, and so on, Keselowski. So it's just the way that it is. It's the way the times are right now. And speaking of the laps, let's see. Harrison Burton, how many laps did he lead last year?
I want to say 4.
Let's see. Harrison Burton. No, I don't know if it says 34 here. Am I looking at the right thing? Let me check.
I don't think I'm
looking at the right thing because I know
memory as well.
Well, I a lot of the things that says, see on the reference, it says laps, but I know drivers have won this race winning with 1 lap or 2 laps, and I'm not seeing any of them. So I don't know what that means. It means something different. So I'm trying to find out here if I can get to it, how many he won. I mean, how many he led.
Yeah.
I think
William Byron in the Daytona 500, he was the one that led 4 laps. Harrison Burton in the fall race led only the last lap.
There you go. Okay. So yeah. So I'm surprised it doesn't have that here. So you can't really look at it. I'm not sure why, again, they have here. They've got, maybe this has to do with something else, because it says pole, caution, and then laps. Is that caution, number of caution, and then the laps for caution? That's probably what that is, right?
Yep, that's what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'm surprised that on the screen they don't have the number of laps led. You got to go looking for it, but that's okay. But that is the point, is that, yeah, we've had quite a number of drivers who've won this race or run any race at super speedways and not led a lot of laps. Okay, so let's go through these groupings here, starting with this first one where we've got Hamlin now inching ahead. And we've talked about Hamlin the last we did it last year in both races where, yes, Denny Hamlin, he's one of the best. He could be the best. Not a surprise he's 9-1. But the problem we had last year is the same problem for me. And this is something that happens a lot with these drivers because it's a luck race. And right now, Denny Hamlin is going through an unlucky time on this racetrack. It's been 7 straight non-top 10 finishes. And that means he's having a lot of bad luck. And I just can't go with him right now. And it worked for me last year, and I'm staying away from it, especially since he's the favorite anyway. Look, he's a 3-500 champ. We know how good he is. But also consider that over his 38 races here, his average finish is only 17th. So it's not like he hasn't had bad luck. He certainly has. And I just want to avoid that. Again, we don't have to go down the Larson Road. But Elliott, he is someone that I'm definitely considering because even though he's never won a Daytona race and he only has 1 top 5 in his last 7 at this racetrack, he does have the wins at Talladega. He's got a win at Atlanta on the new configuration, which happened in 2022. And he has had some success here. And we feel Elliott's going to have a rebound year. He could also be a very good pick right now to throw into future money to win the championship. So, yeah, if you had to choose between Hamlin and Elliott, I'm going to go with Elliott. What would you do?
I'd absolutely go with Elliott as well. I mean, if you look at Hamlin's more recent record at Daytona, his best finish since 2021, the fall of 2021, was actually 13th place. Last time he finished inside the top 10 would have been that Daytona 500 in 2021. So definitely got a streak of bad luck going there for him. Chase Elliott significantly different in terms of the luck. He had a 4th place finish in the fall of 2023. He was 14th in last year's Daytona 500, led 13 laps. His teammate won it last year. And I think just overall, over the past, say, 10 visits to Daytona, Elliott's got significantly more top 5s and top 10s than a Hamlin. So also my pick for this season's championship. I hope, certainly hope he comes out swinging. We'll see what he's able to do. I think if he avoids luck, the Hendrick cars are typically pretty fast and they're able to draft well together. So I think Elliott over Hamlin for me.
Yeah, and again, remember, he's the first one outside the single digit. And don't forget, as we said in that show last week, the last 3 winners, the Penske boys, have all been 11 or 12-1 to win the championship. So makes sense to me. I like that. All right. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead now and take a look at the next couple of drivers here. And we have Blaney and Kyle Busch. Who's underneath these guys here? Logano. Okay, so we got the two of the 3 champs, the NASCAR Cup champs from the last 3 years, Blaney and Logano. And we know how good they are here. I think these are good odds for both of them. Blaney's got a 2021 win, but no 500 yet. And we also know how good he is on Talladega. He's got 3 wins there. He's very good at Atlanta. He's considered one of the best super speedway drivers. Logano also considered one of the best. He also has 3 Talladega wins and 2 wins in Atlanta. And that has happened in the last 4 trips to Atlanta for Logano. So both of them, and Logano does have a 2015 500 win. He crashed in both races last year. Blaney has crashed in the last 3. So Blaney's also starting to go into a little bit of a bad luck run. It's only a little, but if it starts getting much bigger, I'd start avoiding him, just like I said with Hamlin. What do you think about Blaney? Actually, let's start with Blaney and Logano first.
Yeah, just taking those 2. I mean, either one of them is really good. I talked a little bit before about how nobody really comes out and dominates this race. I guess if you could say that anybody comes out and leads, quote unquote, dominates at a place like that, Daytona, it's probably Joey Logano. He led 34 laps last fall, 45 in the 500 last year, started on pole. Last year, I think the Penske cars draft very well. They've got their super speedway package really well founded. So I don't see them slipping back. I don't see them having trouble this year, whereas we've seen Toyota kind of have some troubles in getting up to the raw pace of some of the other cars, some of the other manufacturers at this place in the past. Ford and particularly Penske just aren't going to feel that this year. So again, I think if Logano's going to come out, he's going to lead laps. I think Blaney's going to lead laps as well. It's just a matter of whether or not they can make it to the finish. I think Blaney typically gets closest to the finish. Joey Logano has a tendency to get a little aggressive, more around the 50%, 75% of the way home, unfortunately, and ends up getting taken out. So if Logano can kind of keep it on the rails, for lack of a better word, I think he's definitely going to be one to beat, and it would not be surprising at all for me to see Ryan Blaney in the mix on the last lap as well. It's just a matter of whether or not they get in crashes. But if I have to choose between the two, I'm certainly going to go with Ryan Blaney. I just think his potential that he has shown, particularly on super speedways, is just head and shoulders above probably almost anybody else in the field right now, and he's got the car that can do it. So of those two, if you're going to go Penske, I would lean toward Ryan Blaney.
And
Not
Blaney's
odds either between them.
And Blaney's in a nice little run of finishing first or second in his last handful of races dating back to last season. So
yeah, that's true
you
too.
might want to keep with that until it ends. Now, here's also something very important I did not bring up with Hamlin, because this is another reason, maybe just as an important reason, why I'm staying away from Hamlin. And you basically touched up on it there yourself, CJ, and that is that Toyota has not won a race at Daytona in the last 9 starts. So that's a while. So, that's whatever, over 4 years since Toyota's won at this racetrack. And you got to take that into consideration. So, all right. Kyle Busch is also in this grouping here. And if you're kind of new to the channel and you want to know why we're dissing Kyle Larson, well, I guess we'll throw him in here too before we move on. Just keep in mind, Larson has never had a top 5 in 21 races here at Daytona. His average finish is 22nd. He hasn't had a top 10 in his last 7 at Daytona. He has had 2 top 5s in his career at Talladega in 20 races. And in Atlanta, he's wrecked 4 straight times. So I don't know what to tell you. If you want to take Larson at even 18-1, I think that number is way too low. For Kyle Busch, there's a lot of people that are going to wager on him, maybe even including me, because he's starting to get up there in age, and he's never won a 500 before. That doesn't mean he won't, but that's the kicker. That's the thing, is that if he does, you want to land on him. And again, who knows how many more of these he has. So, and we said this last week, remember, he's only got 1 win ever at Daytona out of 39 races. But he's a good super speedway racer. It just shows you how random this can be. He was runner-up last August. Okay. And that was his first top 5 since his runner-up finish in the 2019 Daytona 500. He's had 5 career runner-ups at Daytona, but just 1 in the 500, for whatever that's worth. Anyway, we know he's a really good driver at this in this particular race. I have no problem with where the odds are. He's kind of in the mix with the rest of them.
Yeah, I think the trend is your friend with Kyle Busch at Daytona. Compared to pretty much almost every driver we've talked about so far, Busch's results seem to be on the uptick. And he was starting to get that uptick when he was with Gibbs, and it got probably even better after he joined Childress. And everybody knows how good Childress cars are at Daytona and Talladega. Does not matter how well Childress does on any other racetrack. It seems like no matter what, even if they're having a terrible year everywhere else, when they come to Talladega and Daytona, they have cars that can compete for the win. And Kyle Busch has been putting that to the test. He finished 2nd, as you said, in the fall race last year. He was 7th in the fall race the year before that. He was 10th in the fall race the year before that, before you get to his last Daytona 500 top 10, which was also in 2022. So I think the trend certainly favors Kyle Busch, but same as you, he's getting on the last half of his career, and he hasn't had the success at a place like Daytona namely winning the Daytona 500, which is without a doubt a prize that he wants to add to his cabinet. So the question is, how much does that weigh on his mind, and how much pressure does that affect him when he's out there? Kyle Busch, supreme at dealing with pressure, though, probably of any other driver. Really good, but we have seen him make some pretty big hot-headed mistakes, probably more so earlier in his career, but he has a tendency still to do that today. So that's about the only thing I would question. So I think Busch very much deserves to be in the conversation of potential winners on Sunday. I'd like to see how he does in the duels. I expect Richard Childress' cars to be strong, and I would recommend actually going with Busch probably before those odds maybe even get a little bit lower. Not going to fall too far, but they're pretty good right now.
Yeah, and speaking of his hot-headedness, that came into play quite a bit last year, and usually when he was hot-headed earlier in his career, it was okay. That's what you either loved or didn't love about him, but he was dominant at that point. Now, last year, it was like because he's running out of patience with the way that he just wasn't racing well, and the car wasn't strong enough, and all of that. But remember last year, incrementally got better. Things were going well just as they were ending the regular season. Playoffs, kind of changed a little bit of the momentum, and that's likely going to happen, of course, when you're out of it. But, there's a lot of possibility that now Kyle is going to have a much stronger year this year. So keep an eye on Kyle for sure if you think he's got 1/500 in him. Very, very, very little time left to wager and take advantage of it. All right, so this next group here, out of this group, I would probably go with Bubba at the bottom at 20. You see the defending champ Byron. So to have him win back-to-back, I just don't think that's going to happen. Byron's okay on super speedways. He's had wins before. He's had a couple in Atlanta. He's really good there. And, of course, he's the defending champ. And then you got Keselowski. Very interested to find out if he gets off to a good start. Again, last week, I mentioned I just don't have a good feeling about things the way they ended last year. He's much better at Talladega. You got to keep that in mind. He's got 6 Talladega wins, but only 1 win here. That was out of 31 races, and it was not a 500. Matter of fact, it was back in 2016, and he only has 1 top 5 since then, with 11 incidents, including 10 wrecks. So he has not had a good go of it since the win here at Daytona. And Gilliland and Priest, we talked about that last week. And look, I looked at the sports book and the numbers were just a little bit off, but I still don't think I can't go with Todd Gilliland or Ryan Priest at these numbers. I just can't do it. Now, Gilliland has had better success at Talladega than at Daytona. That's the reason why I would not pick this race. He has 4 top 12s in his last 5 at Talladega, leading 58 laps as well in Atlanta last February. So you can see why, but he's never had a top 20 in 6 races at Daytona, and he's been involved in incidents 5 of the 6 races with an average of 28.8. He did lead 21 laps in both races last year at Daytona. So there are reasons why you could see where his odds are. I mean, why people might like him better than normal, but I still think the odds are a little bit too low for Gilliland and Priest.
Yeah, I don't disagree too much with what you said. I think certainly of this category, Keselowski and Wallace are the 2 to look at. I just don't think that William Byron goes back-to-back. So I'd want a little bit more in odds there. Not to say that he's not going to be fast and that Hedrick won't be fast. It's just a matter of somebody winning back-to-back Daytona 500s is extremely hard. Bubba Wallace has been fantastic on super speedways. So to be able to get that kind of price on somebody who's been within 1 move off of the last corner of potentially winning and has won at super speedways is a really good value. Ryan Priest and Todd Gilliland, maybe Gilliland over Priest. Certainly Priest is in new territory, new car, going to be coming up to speed. I kind of want to take my time to see how he adapts to the new team and everything on RFK Racing. Gilliland still with the same team, but like you said, I agree. I think he's more a Talladega choice versus a Daytona choice. He can certainly race at the front at both, but he's had more success at Talladega. I think that comes down for me for Brad Keselowski. And yes, I have to look past all of his crashes over the past several years, which have been a ton. But in addition to that, he's also led a ton of laps in that time as well. So he's almost always at the front. If not, he's usually pushing somebody that's inside the top 5 and trying to work his way through. Again, like we talked about with Logano and even Blaney, just a matter of avoiding that trouble that seems to come. And it seems like more often at Daytona, the trouble's coming from the front of the field. They get more aggressive as they push for the lead, whereas in the past, it would have come in the middle of the pack. People would have gotten, bounced around. They would have lost control, made a mistake, and then that caused the wreck. Whereas now, over the past, with this new generation of car, I might argue, the wrecks are coming at the front, and that's where Keselowski tends to be. So if he's able to come through those wrecks unscathed, assuming they're going to be at the front again, assuming he's going to be at the front again out of this group, certainly Keselowski or Wallace. I might lean a little bit more toward Keselowski. The other thing about Wallace, why I would pump the brakes just slightly on him, is like what you said for Toyota in the past. He is in a Toyota. Toyota has not historically drafted well with this new generation of car. Not to say that they won't fix it this year. We'll see how they do in the draft. But remember, Wallace is in a Toyota.
Yeah, that and because there are some other options out there, being this is a crapshoot race, it's probably why I don't need to take Bubba if we're, and we are limiting ourselves to 3 picks here. It's kind of hard to squeeze a Toyota in there. Wallace, though, has been very good here. He has 5 top 15s with an 11.9 average. He also has 3 runner-ups, including 2 in this race. So he's got a Talladega win. And last year he finished 5th and 6th. So even though Toyota didn't win, he's been hanging around. And but maybe the thing is that maybe if he was driving a Ford or a Chevy, maybe the 5th or 6th would be wins. I don't know.
Entirely possible. Yep.
Okay. Next group. Let's see here. We got Bell. Still got some 20s. Out of this one, I probably would say, I'm not sure I'm taking any of these, but I might go with Bell. Bell and Chastain would probably be the 2 that I would consider. Bell, he has had some success. He's got 3 top 5s out of 10 races. And in his last 4 races, he's finished exactly 3rd 3 times. So that's pretty impressive. 42 laps led actually 42 laps led out of those last 4 races. So he's led some laps during that stretch. And actually, that includes the 500. I think that's actually where he's led those laps. He has been decent lately at Talladega and Atlanta. So I think Christopher Bell is one of those drivers that over time is starting to learn now how to be a super speedway racer, but he's driving a Toyota. So you got to keep that in mind. That's why I guess I would probably go with Chastain out of this group, since I'm thinking about Bell or Chastain. Chastain has 3 top 10s out of 13. He has led 39 laps in his last 4 races at Daytona. He's got a Talladega win. He has the 2 runner-ups in the first year of the new configuration in Atlanta in 2022. And I think he's also learning. So I think he is definitely possible. Plus, you're getting 28-1. The only thing with Cindric is I think he's the best one here, but I just can't see him winning a second Daytona 500. That's all. Not that it can't happen. I mean, it could happen. I just can't go down that road. And he's got an Xfinity win as well at Daytona. So there's a lot to like about Cindric and super speedway racing, but I'd rather hold off for him at Talladega and Atlanta next week as a possibility. Reddick and Buescher, meanwhile, taking a look at those guys. Reddick's driving a Toyota. So plus the fact that he has not had good success here generally. If it's interesting. He's got the 2 top 5s, but he also has 7 wrecks and has finished 27th or worse in 9 of his 11. So, but that's Daytona, isn't it? A couple top 5s and a couple of, and like 10 other like 30th or whatever. Buscher, meanwhile, has a win a couple years ago. Wasn't the 500. And we know he could race in these races. He's got Keselowski. That's a definite plus. So it's not the craziest idea in the world to think about Chris Buscher as well. But I'll put Chastain at the top. And then maybe actually I might squeeze Buscher in there at second because Bell's driving a Toyota.
Yeah, certainly of this bunch, I like the three at the top the best. So Christopher Bell, Chris Buscher, and Austin Cindric. Reddick, like you said, just not the demonstrated history of success. Ross Chastain of the bunch, excluding Reddick because I don't have him up on my screen, but out of Bell, Buscher, Cindric, and Chastain, Chastain has the lowest average finish through his career at Daytona of 19.9. And not to say that there's a huge variance in terms of where people finish in terms of the average, because like you said, you typically have some top 10s, maybe some top 5s, and a bunch of 30th places. But if you look at Cindric, obviously the win is helping him there, but an average finish of 17th. First in that Daytona 500, came back in the fall and finished third. He led 13 laps in this race last year. He led 15 laps in the race in the fall. I could see him pairing up with his teammates and doing extremely well. I could also see Chris Buscher pairing up with his teammates and doing extremely well. They're both in Fords. Both of those teams tend to run toward the front. Both of those teams, with the Ford Alliance, I think have been pretty good here recently. So I'd almost want to flip the coin between Buscher and Cindric. I might lean toward Cindric just because of his past ability of having won in the Daytona 500. I don't think it's too far-fetched for him now being several years away from that to get a second win. And I think, as we talked about last year, I think this is a year where we see Cindric starting to step up and get a little bit more consistent in the top results. So maybe that starts this week. We'll see.
Yeah, by the way, I'm probably already going to take Cindric next week because in his last 5 races at Atlanta, his average finish is 8th, leading 146 laps. So, again, the only reason I wouldn't take him here is because winning 2 Daytona 500s is a big ask. Okay, now we've got a lot of drivers almost in the same bracket here. This one's easy for me, and that's Bowman. So I like Bowman a lot here as a long shot, in between kind of deal. He only has 2 top 5s out of 17, so it doesn't have like some big resume. But keep in mind, out of 17 races, his average finish is 15.2. That's not bad. And his average in his last 4 races is 7.2. He's also got 3 career poles, and he was the runner-up in last year's race to his teammate, William Byron. So he would be my pick here. Look, McDowell, Stenhouse. We know they've got the wins at the super speedways. Al Geyer, he's interesting. He has actually an Xfinity Daytona win. But I say he's interesting because I wonder whether or not, because I think he can. I'd like to see him get the opportunity, which I guess he's going to be a regular Cup driver and see what he can do. He's a good driver, so it's not the worst idea in the world if you want to go with any of these drivers, probably except Chase Briscoe. But Briscoe does have a top 5. The unfortunate thing is he's in a situation where he's driving a Toyota. So but out of all these other drivers, all of them, the top 4, I could see if you'd like to go with any of them as a long shot.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Alex Bowman in a Hendrick car at Daytona, and Hendrick cars have just been great at the track, would be this far down. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., another fantastic, aggressive restrictor plate driver or super speedway driver. That's the problem with Stenhouse, though, is his checkers or wreckers. So you got to be careful or wary of that. Michael McDowell has won here. Also with a super speedway notable team as well, despite the fact that he's no longer with Front Row Motorsports. So I expect him to still be able to do well at places like Daytona and Talladega. Justin Allgaier, just remember before taking him early, is that he's not in the race. So he's got to race his way in or qualify in. So while his odds are very good right now, if you want to be early, you are taking the shot that he might not actually make it all the way to Sunday, because if anything happens, duels or qualifying, then he's out. That said, if he makes it to the race with JR Motorsports, another great super speedway notable team from the Xfinity series, this is going to be their Cup debut. Allgaier is probably the perfect person to put in that car for their Cup debut. So a lot of expectations from Allgaier. If he's able to make the race on Sunday, I expect him to do really well. It would certainly be a Cinderella story. But out of the bunch, I think Alex Bowman, just because of the fact that you're getting 28-1 on a Hendrick car when a Hendrick won last year, and they've been so good at this track, sitting on the front row pretty frequently as well. So Alex Bowman sneaking out a win wouldn't be a surprise either.
Stenhouse has 4 super speedway wins, 2 at Talladega, 2 at Daytona, including the 23 500. But he's also crashed 5 of his last 6 times at Daytona, as you said. McDowell, meanwhile, get this, last year, he was the pole sitter at both races at Atlanta and both races at Talladega. He led combined about 100 and I'd say 135, probably about 135 laps, and wrecked both times at Talladega, but did have 1 top 10 at Atlanta. He has a 21 500 win, so of course keep that in mind, but just 1 top 10 since the win at Daytona. Okay, so moving on. Let's see who's got the next grouping here. And we've got, okay, so out of this group, I would go with Gregson first and Dillon second.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gregson's coming into Front Row Motorsports, a team that has been fantastic with their forwards on Daytona and Talladega. Noah Gragson has success on super speedways in his Xfinity days. He's had success on super speedways, not in his Xfinity days as well. Finished 5th and 9th. So 2 out of his 5 races at Daytona in the Cup Series, he's got 2 top 10s, 1 top 5, average finish of 1.2. Crashed out of last fall's race, but finished 9th in the Daytona 500 despite starting 38th. So I think that's really good from a Noah Gragson perspective. And then Austin Dillon, we already talked about Kyle Busch and how good Richard Childress Racing is. Austin Dillon is no stranger to victory lane at a super speedway, let alone Daytona. He's done it before. Absolutely could see him doing it again. Yeah, so either of those guys, excellent picks, certainly rise to the top of this this grouping.
Yeah, Suarez, forget it. He makes Kyle Larson look good on a super speedway, or at least on Daytona. And then Gibbs has not done anything yet really on the super speedways. He did have a 5th in August, so maybe that's a sign that he's getting it. But other than that, there's nothing there. As you mentioned, Dillon also has an 18 Daytona 500 win. So I don't know. Again, you'd have to win a 2nd plus a 3rd overall at Daytona. That's a big ask, but you're getting 45-1. So again, we're talking about the long shots. Berry has not done anything on the super speedways so far. And Noah has the Xfinity wins at both Daytona and Talladega. Okay, next up. All right. So out of this group, look, the Martin Truex deal, this is interesting because we every year, the last couple of years, we've been talking about, all right, Martin Truex and Kyle Larson are being overvalued at the 500. They shouldn't be here. Larson's whatever, 15-1 to 20. They're both, 15, 20-1. But here's the difference now. Now I can get Truex at 50-1. And I know he's not with a better team, and I get that, but who cares? It's the Daytona 500. Anything can happen here. So I would actually consider that. I think you're doubling your option here now, your odds wise. So now I'd be like, all right, it's not like he hasn't been, he hasn't had some opportunities up front. He's not my first choice as a long shot, but I just wouldn't say no at this point at 50-1. But AJ and Eric Jones. Look, Eric Jones, in the same respect, because he's the obvious choice next to AJ. But here's the thing I like. Last year, Eric Jones was 25-1. And it makes sense. Look at his history. He's got a Daytona win in 2018. He has 7 top 10s and 10 Talladega races. So he could drive the super speedways, but with the same credentials, you're getting now more than double. So instead of 25 to 1, we're getting 55 to 1 with Eric Jones. And AJ Allmendinger is another one. I know he hasn't raced a lot recently because he went to the Xfinity Series, but before that, and even last year, but look at this: 6 top 10s in his last 7, 2 top 5s in that same stretch, 6th last year, leading some laps. And when he disappeared with the Xfinity Series, all he did was in 8 races, he had 4 top 5s and threw in a Talladega win in 2022. So I know a lot of people look at AJ and the first thing they think of are road courses. Don't. I mean, he's getting wins here in the super speedways. So I think Eric Jones and AJ Allmendinger are absolute slam dunk, definite long shot picks. You have to pick them.
Yeah, totally agree, especially AJ Allmendinger. A fantastic winning capable team. The only question I have about Eric Jones is his team. We talk about it all the time. It's a team sport. Mistakes on pit road, mistakes on setup, etc. Going to really be painful at a place like Daytona here on Sunday. If his team can stay behind him, Eric Jones is going to be up at the front from his speed and his ability without question. AJ Allmendinger has the speed, the equipment, and the ability as a driver to be able to win these races. And he finished 6th in last year's Daytona 500 despite starting 28th, led 9 laps, led 8 laps in the Daytona fall race the year before that, coming back to the Cup Series again. So I think those two certainly, AJ Allmendinger without question. Another person to think about, he doesn't have a whole ton of experience at Daytona in the Cup Series, but he got better as the year went on, finished 11th in the fall race, or in August, I guess, would be Carson Hocevar, and he's with Spire Motorsports, who has a tendency to be there at the end. So I think a true long shot would be Carson Hocevar. I kind of scratch my head as to why AJ Allmendinger is as big of a long shot as he is right now, considering the team and his ability on these types of tracks.
And Justin Haley, he's got to win in 2019. He led 21 laps last August before wrecking. And at Talladega, he's got 2 top 10s in his last 3. And in Atlanta, he's got 2 top 10s in his last 5. So every one of these drivers, there's something interesting as far as long shots. I wouldn't mind throwing a buck on all of them, to tell you the truth. So, and maybe more on Jones and AJ. Okay, next. Now we're starting to get really further down here. So not many more to go. Yeah, the only one that I would go with here is my my playoff surprise pick, which would be Cole Custer. So this is the type of race he could win. Now, he could win one of these races, but he could also win another type of race at another type of racetrack. But keep in mind, last year in the Xfinity Series, he led 27 laps before wrecking. He's got 2 top 10s and 1 top 5 in his last 3 at Talladega, so he can race in this setting. So, yeah, he would be my pick here. I don't know that I would go with anyone else. Let's see. Helio Castroneves should be 200 to 1, but he's got a name. So, and it's Daytona, I guess. Ty Dillon and Corey LaJoie, though. Look, keep this in mind, though. LaJoie has been more active at Atlanta. He's really stuck out at Atlanta with the 2 top 5s since the configuration change. But he does have 5 top 10s and 1 top 5 at Daytona, and he's sitting there at 90 to 1. And again, I guess you're going to have to tell me which guys are in and which guys aren't yet. And Ty Dillon, here's the thing that's interesting about Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon only has 1 top 5 and 14 appearances, but in his last 9 at Daytona, if he is not involved in a wreck or if he doesn't have engine issues, his average finish is 7.6. So if he's alive at the end, you might want to consider Ty Dillon for top 10s, top 20s, as well as a bunch of these drivers that we're talking about down here. You might be able to, make some money off of them if you just, don't go for the win and just go for, a top 10 or a top 5 run. So out of all these long shots down here, which ones interest you, CJ?
So Corey LaJoie isn't a full-time driver. This is, at least at the moment, a one-off deal for him. He's not in the race. He certainly has the capability to race well. Jimmy Johnson also one-off, so he is not in the race. He's going to have to find his way through. Helio Castroneves also not technically in the race, though with the new NASCAR rules of some world famous, I don't know, if your name is big enough and you're successful,
He'll be in it.
Series, come in. Helio's going to be in regardless, so he'll be there. Out of this bunch, I do like Cole Custer. I think that's a pretty good choice, but actually I had my eye on Riley Herbst, and Riley Herbst has been very good on super speedways in the Xfinity series. If you look at just Daytona last year in his Xfinity starts, he finished 6th in February and 4th in August. And he's got a number of other top 5s and top 10s in the Xfinity series at Daytona as well. Then if you just flip over to his Cup series, obviously a much more limited span of races, just 3 official races. But his best finish was in the Daytona 500 in 2023, where he finished inside the top 10 despite starting 38th, another kind of Noah Gragson-like performance. So I think out of this bunch, I got my eye on Riley Herbst. I don't think Cole Custer's a bad choice at all. Shane Van Gisbergen is bringing up his super speedway knowledge to think that he's going to win is kind of a long shot. Maybe he'll be in contention. Maybe he learns pretty quickly. He's got the experience last year from the Xfinity days, and he was actually pretty good in those races, as you would expect as well. But I think winning the Daytona 500 takes a lot of luck and a lot of things to go his way. So chances are just going to be slim. Out of that bunch, Riley Herbst and Cole Custer would be my choices.
Yeah, the only thing with Herbst is driving a Toyota. So keep that in mind. And again, though, these are good drivers to take. And let's see, what do they have here? These are only your top 3 and top 5. So you don't have to go that low. So you're going to get decent odds with these long shotters if you just go top 10 or top. I don't know if you'll get a top 20 in NASCAR. You might be able to, but I'm sure you'll get a top 10 somewhere. So you probably, based on this, you might be able to get like 15-1 on one of these drivers, make the top 10. And I tell you what, 1 or 2 of these drivers we just talked about has a real good chance of finishing with all the luck and all that stuff that's involved, because it all happens every year that you get a few of these drivers that end up, they'll end up like, bobbling their way to the finish line while they're turning around and watching, a whole bunch of cars wrecking. Hey, I finished in 8th. Hey.
Exactly.
All right. Zane Smith, by the way, has 2 truck wins at Daytona. Keep that in mind. He's 90-1. Not sure if he has to drive his way through, though. I don't know. All right. So time to go over our picks. So let's go ahead and do that. So CJ, I'll let you go with the first pick. So who do you want to take with the first pick of the Daytona 500, the first pick of 2025?
Just going back to Zane Smith, he is in.
Okay.
For those that were wondering, and he should be getting better odds than Helio Castroneves.
Yeah.
Going on the value scale, certainly go with Zane Smith there.
By the way, do they have the charts out somewhere as far as the how they're going to run the duels? Or do they have to do qualifying first to figure that out?
Qualifying first tonight. I think that kicks off like at 8:00, if I'm not mistaken. That'll set the fields for the two duels. So we'll know, late tonight how the lineups for the duels are going to look, who's in duel 1, who's in duel 2, and then also who will be the pole sitter and second place starter on the front row for Sunday's Daytona 500, and then the duels will set the rest of the field from there. The top 2 of the 9 open entrants will qualify in, so we'll know who those 2 guys are after tonight as well. The top 2 fastest of those 9 automatically have their spot for Sunday, regardless of what happens in the duels. Then everybody else after that, the other 7 will have to race their way in. I guess other 6, because we already said Helio, no matter what happens, he's going to be able to race.
Okay. So how many spots right now are open?
There should be 4 spots, but when you throw Helio in there, 5 open entries.
Okay. So
4. Two will be in on time tonight, and then 2 will have to race their way in, and then
duels
gets to walk up to the starting grid.
Okay. All righty. Who are you going to go with? Who's your top pick?
It's a tough decision because I really like Jake. I also really like Blaney, and I also really like Busch. So
between Blaney, Busch, and who?
It would be between Elliott, Blaney, and Bush for me.
That's the same thing it is for me. So whoever you take, I'll be left over with at least one of the two.
All right, I'll tell you what. I'll go with Kyle Busch for the sentimental. He finally gets his Daytona 500 win.
All right. Yeah, these are definitely three drivers that I'm going to take. So these are to be my top three. I mean, again, just myself. So that's a good thing about we can't normally take three of the top drivers except in a super speedway because the odds are too low. But you can take three of the top drivers a week like this because you're getting still good odds. All right. So I tell you what, I'll go ahead. Neither one is a 500 either. So I'll take Elliott. I'll go with Elliott. I don't want to be too much of a homer, but the one thing that does concern me, which is why I'm not going to go with Blaney over Elliott, is just the 3 straight wrecks. And I'm wondering if he's going through a little bad run here. Okay, so I'll pick the second first. So let's see. It's going to be between Bowman and Buescher. So I already know who I'm taking there. So I'm taking Bowman, and Buescher would have been my fallback. So who are you going to go with?
I'll actually go with Keselowski. I like that he's been in the front. Just hope that he can avoid those wrecks as they occur.
And then this is definitely super long shot here. So who are you going to go with your $10 wager?
Let's go with, I'm flipping a coin between two of them. Let's go with AJ Allmendinger. Riley Herbst would have been my other one.
Okay, AJ it is. I will go with, it's between Gregson, Jones, and Custer. So I'll tell you what, I'll go with Noah Gragson.
Excellent choice.
And your last two would have been Herbst and who else?
Gregson.
Oh, Gregson. Okay, yep. Cool. All right, so there you go. That is it for our inaugural preview for the 2025 NASCAR Cup season. Next week it's Atlanta, so it's not like we have to do too much, crazy handicapping. We have all of our knowledge here on our super speedway track, so I'm not throwing any of this stuff away yet. I'll be using it for next week, and we'll see whether or not we can finally. Look, William Byron won last year, so it wasn't like it was it wasn't like Harrison Burton won the 500. So we did have a really good driver win the race, even though he was a little bit of a long shot, but not really. He was a contender. Before that, it was Stenhouse, Cendric, McDowell. So there was that 3-year run of big long shots. We'll see if we can get back on track. And if not, then hopefully one of our long shots will hit. Other than that, you have your preview for RotoWire. And when is that going to be available? So we can put it in the description area.
It's a busy week. We'll have the duels preview on rotowire.com tomorrow morning or tomorrow early afternoon. Then we'll have the Daytona 500 preview probably up on Friday, if not first thing Saturday morning. And then we'll have our race recap Monday following Sunday's race, all on rotowire.com and in the link below this video. Okay. So you just send me what you got whenever you want to send me what you got, and I'll post it. And we will definitely be here if anybody has any questions or comments. Once again, look out for Kevin Rogers. He's going to be posting a video here in the next couple of days, and I will be back probably Friday. I doubt I'll do it Thursday night, but you never know. Maybe if I'm up late enough, because what time do you think it'll be on Thursday? 10 o'clock? It should be over by 10. Should be probably 9:30ish. I would think it'd be over. All right. So I know we'll see. Maybe it'd probably be my best interest to do it, but we'll
When has that ever stopped me before? All right. So we're out of here. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss one of our previews. And if you have any questions or suggestions at all regarding anything that you would like us to talk about on a weekly basis, including matchups, which is something Kevin's going to try to do, let us know. And we're going to hope to have a really great season here for the first season on Proline TV. So we're really looking forward to it. And that's why we're doing it. We're doing it for you guys out there. I hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys next week when we preview the race in Atlanta.